Welcome to the December 6th edition of the Zooch Wilde Podcast. The regular season is over. We had some big wins, some big fights, even some pepper spray Zooch last weekend. But we got a great show for today. Obviously, we're going to recap a little bit of that Ohio State Michigan game. Going to talk a little bit about our playoff, kind of the playoff picture, and maybe look at our brackets from before the season, as well as jumping right into the conference championship games. I'm excited for today's show because it's a little bit of everything today, Zooch. I mean, we'll get a little reaction, little looking forward, little Ryan Day looking like a kid who pooped his pants at the zoo during the fight.
That the Ryan Day just standing there, like the memes of Ryan Day just standing there are up there with Jones' crime from last year.
Yeah,
What
it is up.
happened killed me.
It is up there. And what's funny about it is, but before I want to get started, I have to make the announcement. Settle Down Awards are this upcoming Thursday, the 12th. Please check that out. They are going to be live Thursday. Don't exactly know the time yet. Just going to assume it's at our normal live time. So please, everyone, check that out. We had a great audience last year. It was a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. But now we get to talk about the one game we are going to recap from last year. There was a lot last week. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happened last week, but Ohio State, 20-point favorites. You lose at home, and chaos erupts. I mean, I don't even know where to start because I think where I'm going to start is I don't even think you can fire him because it's like National Signing Day was a few days ago as we're recording. Like, I it's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. This is the definition of insanity for Ohio State.
Well, yeah, and the biggest thing is you can make the argument the 3 years prior to this, Michigan was a playoff team a couple times and a national champion. This year, Michigan, especially offensively, is horrible. They
Terrible.
have thrown 11 touchdowns all year long.
Hey,
I looked at it,
Tyler
like
Warren, though,
15
again, mean article.
That was a mean article to throw in there. Like, oh, she just got beat by a cancer survivor. Didn't need to be
Mean.
thrown in to the article. But like I was saying, this. Okay, so if you're looking at Ryan Day, excluding the COVID year, and I believe 2019 was the year they lost to Clemson, right?
Yeah.
When Justin Fields threw the interception.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so since then, they have they had the loss to Clemson under him in the first round of the playoffs. They got blown out in the COVID year national championship. Have not beat Michigan now since 2019 because they didn't play the COVID year. He hasn't even won the Big Ten now. Like when he's not, it's gone from losing the national championship to losing the playoff to now to losing to Michigan to go to the Big Ten championship to now not even he's not even appearing in the Big Ten championship anymore. So it's
That's where I
almost
think is the more crazy part to me is that he's not going to be playing for a Big Ten championship.
yeah, and it's you know if you it's almost I think it's quasi similar in a lot of ways to the Dabo Sweeney situation, except Dabo Sweeney has the national championships. Like both of those programs, yeah. And like Ohio State would probably beat Clemson. I'm not saying that Clemson's better than Ohio State or anything, but I just mean in terms of you look at both programs, they've like an Ohio State could still win the national championship. They'll be in the playoff. Hell, even Clemson might be in the if they win Saturday, they're going to be in the playoff. But to me, it's more than that. I think you can look at other teams who might have had disappointing years as well, but I think their trajectory is still going upwards. Where I think Ohio State's is starting to slip down a little bit more because this. Make no mistake, this is a bad, bad Michigan team. That offense is.
They are.
I mean, they look like Iowa's offense has the past.
They were bad, and they had realistically two out of their top 5 players sitting out, Loveland and Will Johnson. So it's like you didn't even face their top offensive weapon and their top cover corner. And I don't want to beat a dead horse because I think a lot of what my actual game like thoughts have already been said. So like it seemed like Chip Kelly was trying to prove a point running the football. Will Howard, we've been saying it all year. It's like 70 to 80% like, oh my God, can this guy play in the NFL? And then it's just like you should not like be starting Division 1 football. And I like we saw those plays. And you just I think the thing that you saw that game turn, and this is beating a dead horse again, but it's when Jack Sawyer gets that pick and you just go 3 and out afterwards. Like that should be like the savior pick, right?
Yeah, that's.
And
I
it's
mean,
just
I thought when that pick happened because I was out with my fiance and her mom. They were shopping, so I did the guy move, and there's probably 15 of us there. You've been there before. It's a Big Al's. It's a Village in Meridian. It's this giant bowling alley with a bunch of TVs. Just 15 guys sitting in the bar, and the bartender asked every one of them, like, "Oh, is the wife and the kids shopping?" Yep. So we were all it was like a collective band of men just there watching, and we like were talking. I was like, that's it. Michigan's gonna. I thought they were gonna for sure lose after uh, that interception happened at the 1 yard. Because when I was watching that play, I was like, oh, that guy's wide open. I was like, throw the ball because he was wide open at first, and then he waited too long. And I was like, that's it. Like Ohio State will go down. They'll either kick a field goal or score a touchdown and win 17-10.
Mhm.
But they just, and that's been the thing under Ryan Day. Like they don't seem to have any type of, I guess, for lack of a better term, killer instinct.
No, they
Like
don't.
I just really don't know how. That game is at home. They have not like at least 2 of the previous 3 years dominated you. They're bad this year. I would think that you would want to go into that game and like make a statement, like, all right, y'all won 3 games in a row, but we're gonna kind of run up the score on you now because you beat us by 20 a couple times. You beat us last year,
Mhm.
and they just I don't know what to do with like what they're gonna do with him because whew, if they lose, you're always Ohio State, so it's not like if you fire him, you're gonna lose a bunch of recruits and stuff. You might lose some, you'll get him back. People will want to play at Ohio State, but I mean, shoot, people have been giving Ole Miss a hard time about being disappointing. If I'll put it to you this way, if if you reversed Indiana and Ohio State, right, and Indiana had lost to Oregon and then lost that Michigan game, Indiana would not be in the playoff. I think
Mm.
uh, because Ohio State's Ohio State, fair enough. They are in the playoff at 10-2. I guess Ohio State has the win over Penn State, so maybe that's more of a reasoning. But no one thought at 10-2 Indiana was going to be in the playoff, and Indiana had to go 11-1, and they're still going to. They're like what, a 10 seed right now?
Probably,
I
yeah.
can't remember what they
They're
are.
looking not they're not looking to host, and it's actually kind of crazy. I mean, I think before we stop talking about this game, we have to talk about that skirmish afterwards. First of all, Gus Johnson acted like Sharon Moore led a gang of soldiers from the 1910s World War One and stormed a trench and killed someone with Gus Johnson's reaction. I mean, Gus Johnson had some good reactions, but I think he had his. Do you remember when Joe Buck on the Randy Moss game, the playoff game, and Randy Moss mooned the crowd, and he goes, "That's a disgusting act." And like even Joe Buck today will be like, you know what? Yeah, I probably overreacted a little. I didn't think it was sportsmanship, but I was just, yeah, it was an overreaction. I think Gus Johnson's gonna have that same reaction in a few years, where it's like it's rivalry weekend, man. Like stuff's gonna happen
You
into the flag planting. I see it from both sides. What do you think about that, the flag planting, before we move on?
I think the flag planting is what makes college football great. I think it's what it separates it from like the NFL or college basketball or anything like which also Jack Sawyer had a complete come apart when they did that.
Yes.
He was like being held
You
back. It
know,
was
it is like, and Jack Sawyer, good player, great game, but it is all-time loser talk to after you lose the game go, what are you playing for next week? all-time loser talk.
That's an all time like. If I was there, I'd been like, buddy, you didn't beat us one time in your 4 years here. Like that's just one of those rivalries that you cannot go 0-4. Like Jack
I mean,
Sawyer's a great player, but you're 0-4 versus Michigan. Like
yeah.
it is one of those things that game, and I believe it. Nothing else matters. Even if Ohio State were to go on and win the national championship game, the people that they would want to talk to the most about it, they can't because Michigan
Mhm.
fans will just be like, okay, well, we lost basically every good player, not every good player, but the majority of the good players we had an anemic offense. Also, we won a national championship and beat you in our worst season, our worst team in
Mhm.
5 or 6 years, like since the COVID
Yeah,
year when they were
people forget let like when Urban was beating Harbaugh, it literally probably took COVID to keep Harbaugh from getting fired. Like if Harbaugh had to play a true 2020 season, there's a 50% chance he gets fired because he goes what 8, 9 wins, loses to Ohio State again, probably goes to maybe like the Outback Bowl or something. Like that is a rivalry where he and like you said, like Ohio State winning the national championship would probably still put them at like a 97, 98 level satisfaction rate because they know
yeah, you're not going to be
Michigan could always say, well, we have one too, and we beat you that year that you won.
no, it's and that's what I mean. It's like not that there wasn't pressure before, but the amount of pressure, and it's not going to be an easy game. It's probably going to be Tennessee that Ohio State plays. If Tennessee comes in and beats
Okay,
you,
let's just say there everyone needs to be nice to those coaches online. Everyone, if Tennessee and Ohio State plays, let's just remember that these coaches are trying their best and they're doing it for the kids. Let's just remember that.
well, and see, part of Ryan Day's issue is Ryan Day's personality, like the Lou Holtz thing. It's going to follow him around everywhere until they like. I mean, yeah, you beat Penn State, cool. You don't beat your arch rival. You don't win your conference. You don't win the national championship. You're at Ohio State. You're not at, and that's what I think the difference is. Like, did Missouri have a disappointing season? Sure. Did Ole Miss have a disappointing season? Sure. Did Florida State's a little bit different because they weren't disappointed. They were downright awful. But Ohio State, I think everyone would agree, like they have had so far a more disappointing season than Ole Miss or Missouri or whoever you want to throw in there that's like was a quasi like, oh, they could make the playoff, like maybe win the national championship, they're going to be
Hmm.
really good. Ohio State was like pretty much the odds-on favorite at the beginning of the year. Almost everyone was picking Ohio State.
Yeah,
Some people picked Georgia, some people picked Oregon, and then you had us like sparingly like other teams in there. They are
definitely.
10-2. They didn't beat their arch rival. They aren't going to win the Big Ten. If you lose in the playoff and you finish 10-3, you accomplished nothing. So, do I think he'll get fired? I think if they lose to Tennessee, there's a decent chance that
Oh,
happens, just because I don't see like any. I see like a trajectory going down, whereas at those other schools that I
hmm,
mentioned that had disappointing seasons, well, it was disappointing. Yes, the trajectory is going up.
up.
It's
That
not
makes sense.
it's not traditional for Ole Miss or Missouri or
South Carolina.
South Carolina, whoever, to win that many games.
No, I definitely agree. But speaking of Ole Miss and moving on to our next one, we have to talk about. I mean, we're gonna get into this current playoff bracket, but before we do, I want to talk to you about some of our preseason picks to make the playoffs. Are you ready for this?
Yes, and
So
some of them are bad.
I think we mostly did a good job. I think we're sitting around like a 60-ish%, at least with the teams. We both had Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia. We both had Bama sneaking in there, which probably a lot of teams didn't. It's looking like they are now. We both had Boise State, which is looking like that could be a good one if they win today. Both had Notre Dame. Here's where it gets a little iffy. Both had Tennessee. I think that was another big one from us. Like, not as many people were high on Tennessee. For you, Zooch, I don't fault you for your Miami or your Ole Miss pick. Those were two close ones. You know what? Miami, they blew it. Ole Miss blew it. Those were close. Um, uh, you know what? I'm not going to even fault you for USC. Maybe that's like a little fault. So you had USC at the what appears to be the 11 seed,
They
and
would be better with
fine,
Miller Moss.
fine. You know what? That's it's fine. Um, actually, that was a 10 seed. So here are the two that really hurt you. Um, would you like to comment on the Kansas Jayhawks having a bye in the Big 12 and Rutgers sneaking
So for the
in?
Kansas one, if Kansas had played like they did for a random 3 weeks to like ruin like Colorado, who else did they beat? They beat like Colorado
hmm
and some other really good Big Ten or good Big Ten team. Yeah, the Rutgers one. I was looking at their schedule. It looked like an easy schedule. I think they finished 7-5. That one was bad.
Well, don't.
And the USC one was bad, 6-6.
Hey,
But
look,
it was
I was
looking
high on
great
Miller
after
Moss
they
too.
beat LSU.
Oh, it was awesome. Now you don't look as bad compared to some of mine. Because I'm a man of my word, I'm also going to attack this head on. So so besides the ones I mentioned at the beginning, um, I have Clemson at my 3, so bad, but like still possible, right? Clemson at my
Yep.
3 seed. Uh,
If they win, they
Kansas, yeah, I had Kansas State at my 4, ranked team, right? Just a couple things don't go
well,
the
and they
way.
were tied. They were,
Yeah,
or did they have three Big 12 losses? But
I
I
think they
think they
had
had.
3. They were the first team out of the
Okay.
Big 12 championship. Them and Colorado. I had Mizzou at 8. Another like, you know what? I think maybe Mizzou. I was a little high on them, but again, ranked team. They just couldn't get it done in the big games. Um, so here's where it gets really bad. I had the Arizona Wildcats at number 10.
That's a tough
It
one.
is that is beyond tough. Brett Brennan, I love him as a coach. I thought he was going to do great things. Fifta, McMillan, Manu, Flo, all those guys coming back. I thought something could be done. And especially with the word now that Fifta is transferring, uh, it's not looking good in Tucson. And that usually would be someone's worst pick, right? Would you say? Like, dang, you had Arizona in the college football playoff. Well, when I tell you, guess what my number 11 team was? I was really high on maybe a certain transfer quarterback, a certain team that was coming off a great regular season last year on the Atlantic coast.
I'm trying to who you could have had.
Maybe a certain quarterback transferring from a West Coast state, um, uh, a Samoan quarterback that they got
Oh yes,
transferring. Yes,
the Fighting Mike Norvells.
Yes, no, I had Florida State at 11, and I own up to that. I think as it's good as a society, especially with our podcast. I'm going to own up, and it's like I'm at an AA meeting. Hi, my name is Diego Wilde, and I picked Florida State to make the college football playoff. It's there.
And
It happened. And I was completely wrong. I was like not even close to being right. Not even like a Clemson or my Mizzou or my Kansas State where it's like, they got a shot. Like I wasn't even close on this one, man. Not even close.
well, and I will say too, for a couple of these teams, like you said, we both had Miami.
No, I did not have Miami.
Okay. When you really, and I was talking with one of my buddies about this earlier. If you really sat down, and I get it, I guess technically we're in the media too, but if you really sit down, there are so many teams that were close, like one or two plays go different, and they're
hmm
in it. Miami's for sure one. I mean,
A&M.
Ole Miss, A&M, Ole Miss had both Kentucky and LSU in like a 4th and 7 with a little over a minute left, and on their own side of the field, if they get a stop, they win both those games, and
Shit,
like
Illinois' got a
legitimately, they
shot.
won.
If Illinois
Yeah,
gets an upset, like it's
right. And Ole Miss, it's not like, and I know that can go both ways, but for someone like Ole Miss, they won every other game by at least 2 scores. So you're like, oh my God, like you get one stop. Even in one of the games, you get one stop. And it's like, okay, they're 10-2. They're in the playoff. Like they're ahead of
mhm.
Alabama for sure. Miami lost 2 1-score games. Granted, they had some other ones that were relatively close that could have gone either way. But my overall point is this year specifically, it seems like there is less of a difference. Like, for in your opinion, is there a huge gap between Oregon and Texas and like
No,
Ole Miss and Miami, the first 2 teams out?
not huge. Not
Not
like in
huge.
some years where it's like the number 1 team is gonna blow out the number 12 team. Now it's
Yeah,
like Oregon probably should beat Miami, and Oregon
right.
should beat Ole Miss. But if Ole Miss is humming, they're gonna win. Like it's not
Yeah,
even
it's
one of those
just
things where it's like, oh man, Oregon's best game beats anyone. It's like, well, no, if Ole Miss plays their best game, it's gonna be a dogfight. It's just
right. And the
they
same thing,
don't
like,
always
I
play their
mean,
best game.
no, they don't always play their best game. And, you look at Texas, they didn't play their best game against Georgia. Granted, Georgia didn't play their best game against Texas either. And like, if Georgia beats them twice, Georgia's going to be 2 or 3 in the final standings. They're going to what? Because Georgia was 6, I believe. They win
Mhm.
that game. They're going to be ahead of Boise State. They're probably, I would say, going to be ahead of SMU. So they're probably going to be the 2 seed, but behind the winner of the Oregon and Penn State game. Uh, so you look at it and you're like, all right, well, Alabama beat Georgia. Ole Miss beat Georgia. I don't think SMU is far and away better than Miami. I think that'd
That
probably be
was
a close game.
and that was the one thing I wanted to kind of tail end this conversation with and at least bring up is the SMU conundrum in the ACC in Alabama because it seems like most of the playoff spots are kind of at least like locked into they're making the playoff. You know, some seating might get switched around right now. Obviously, we'll talk about this more in our quick championship predictions. But if SMU loses and Alabama gets in, there is going to be major discussions and major repercussions for the sport, I think. Like there is
That is
no go for it.
personally, I think 9-3, even with the bad losses, I think, and it's hard because SMU is in the conference championship game, but this is my rationale as to why there should not be rankings. It doesn't rankings for something like this make no sense because it never ever adds up. It just like I mean, for example, I guess last year, right? Washington was unbeaten, Michigan was unbeaten. Um, who else was in it?
Texas.
Texas had the 1 loss, and Alabama got in with the 1 loss. So if you look at it last year, Georgia was on like a 40 game winning streak or whatever it was. 2 straight back-to-back national championships in pretty convincing fashion. The second time around, at least. They lose by 3 to 11-1 Alabama in the SEC championship and drop from 1 to 5. Ohio State just lost to 6-5 Michigan and dropped from 2 to 6. That's why rankings make no sense to me. And they're gonna expand. It's probably gonna go to 14 team. Like next year's the last year of the 12 team. They're gonna go to
Oh,
14, maybe
100%.
more.
I don't
And that's why I think you need to have. I would rather have like the SEC and the Big Ten. If you went to 14 teams and the SEC and the Big Ten were like, we want 4 automatic qualifiers each. I'm fine with that because you need those two conferences to
I would
generate
rather
great. Go ahead.
I think that's loose because I think then that's 4 spots for 3 conferences essentially. Because I am grouping in it'll be the new Pac-10 G5 and the ACC Big 12. Some people don't like this. I agree with the 4 automatics of each conference. That's fine. At that point, just adapt the FCS model and why not make it 16? It's
And
the clean
that's what
pro model. And you do
overall.
bring up a good point, and it's sorry because I'm agreeing with you. It's a good point you bring up where it's why are we using like the ranking system when we are no longer using a rankings model to determine a national champion like we did in the past in the 90s.
Exactly. And and I might have texted it to you, it might have been Troy. I want it to be 16 because you have the Power Four, right? If you have a 16 team playoff, four to the Big Ten, four to the SEC, and it's your top four in the standings, not based on rankings or anything like that. Your top four in the standings. That's 8 spots. Then you have the ACC, the Big 12, and the group of five. Give That would be 8. Give the ACC 2, the Big 12 2. So that gives you 10 total teams in. One to the group of five. That gives you 11. You have 5 at large teams. If you cannot be in the top four of your conference or get one of those 5 at large bids, you have no
No,
reasoning to be in whatsoever. But I don't think it should be because like I said, the ranking thing just doesn't add up, and there's way too much. It's all based on opinion at the end of the day. There's not, you can't have,
you bring back the BCS.
yeah, like that. It used to be like, all right, there's these different computer rankings and stuff. I didn't love the BCS, but to me, the BCS made more sense than what you have right now. And I think part of it too is to eliminate some of this, you got to get these conferences together and say, hey, you know what? Each of you has like 20 teams in your leagues right now. You got at least 18.
Stop playing
You have to
FCS.
stop playing. You have to start playing other, uh, like you each year you do an ACC, SEC challenge, and some of it's already built in. Like Florida State plays Florida, uh, Clemson plays South Carolina, Georgia plays Georgia Tech. But you have to start doing that because every year you're going to run into this thing, and it's should 10-2 Miami, who didn't beat a ranked team all year, get in over 9-3 Alabama, who got destroyed by a 6-6 Oklahoma team, lost to I think they finished 6-6 Vanderbilt team, and who was Alabama's other loss? Tennessee. They lost to
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee. Who's in set, but Miami didn't play Clemson or SMU,
Yeah.
and like I said, they beat no rank. It doesn't. The current thing doesn't add up at all, and you cannot do a ranking because it does even like I said, if that was Indiana who lost to Michigan, if Indiana was 10-1, came in and lost to Michigan, they would be out. They would not be in the
Mm-hmm.
playoff, and no one's going to convince me otherwise. People were worried they were talking about dropping them out if they lost to Ohio State
Mm-hmm.
by a certain amount, and they almost did. They're at like 10. Like if in reality, I don't know that Indiana would be in right now if Ole Miss was 10-2, Alabama was 10-2, and uh, Miami was 11-1.
No, I
Would
agree.
Indiana be in? Probably not. So yeah, I agree with you overall. I'll send it to you later what I put in my 16 team thing. The talk is now going to 14, which I don't think it takes away from the regular season. I mean,
No,
it
I
does
think it's
give,
the complete opposite. I think we've seen this year. I think it adds more meaningful games.
yeah, it does. And like, sure, does it give the Georgias and the Ohio States and the Alabamas the ability to lose a couple times and still win a national championship? Yeah, but I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. Like, I don't believe for a second last year that because Georgia lost by 3 in the SEC championship to a one-loss Alabama team, that means they aren't worthy of Florida State too. Florida State went undefeated
Mm-hmm.
and lost like it. You can't have that going on either. Like a team going undefeated, and we're freaking Boise State fans, so it's happened to us more than anybody else. But
Hmm.
yeah, I overall, yes, I agree with you. 16 teams. I just personally think they should get rid of rankings because it makes it doesn't add up at the end of the day.
I like the rankings just because when you see the game, it's like, oh, nice little 24. But I do agree with the fact that's like the automatics that should be in. It's like, hey, ACC top two teams in ACC, top four teams in SEC, top four teams in Big Ten. Play like everyone take out a non-con game. It sucks. Maybe what is it now? Most teams play three non-con games, but maybe bump that down to two. Play more people in conference. Let's not
Yeah,
have
and
these
they haven't.
situations. And I think we're close and it's getting better. And I think this sport, there's more eyeballs in the sport now more than ever because of the playoff. And I think we're slowly getting there. I think it was scary for a lot of folks at first, and for me and a lot of other folks, the talk of like the Super League, I think, is what scares a lot of people. And I think the 14 and personally 16 team playoff 16 is like the perfect happy compromise for the big conferences who want to kind of own the sport, and everyone else who it's like, do not shut us out or you will kill the sport. I think it's
And
the
yeah, and
perfect
you're gonna
balance.
have, and exactly, and people are going to have, whether they like it or not, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to have more power. They are. They already have more power. When this new stuff comes in, they're going to get more money. That is just how it works, and that is how it goes in every sport. The Detroit Lions are like 11-1, and every week when I turn on the NFL for a primetime game, you know who it mostly is? The Ravens, the Chiefs. A lot of times it's the
Cowboys.
Cowboys. That's how it works. Is that fair? No. But the Cowboys have more power than the Detroit Lions. They just do. And that's across all sports. I love the NHL. You know what ESPN is not going to do? If there's a game seven of the NBA Finals going on at the same time as the game seven of the Stanley Cup Finals, the NBA is going to get the better time slot and the better network. Just how it's going to go. That's it's at the end of the day, it's a business. Like, yes, it is a sporting event, all that stuff. It is a business, and it's going to operate like that. And people might
Don't
not
tell
have
the
heard it
face.
here first.
Don't tell the Facebook groups that. Don't tell the Facebook groups.
Well, yeah, it's just that's how. And we can get into that a little bit later. I have a take
Well,
on the Heisman Trophy
that might
ones
be.
too. But
We should. I think we should save our Facebook chat and maybe a specific Facebook chat that resides in Boise, Idaho. That I love because they're so sweet 90% of the time. But there's just a little bit that's just like really. But no, I agree. I'm excited for the playoffs expansion. That was a lot. I'm excited for next week's show to see like digest like, oh my gosh, it's actually here and actually get like playoff predictions off. It's gonna be awesome.
yeah, it was fun.
All right, now time to move on to our weekly segment, the list. Well, of course, listeners of the show know. For the non-listeners or the new time listeners, the list is where we find tweets online, mainly from the burnerverse, mainly from just all aspects of college football world via Twitter, and share them with you. We do not condone these tweets, but we do not disown them. We are just reporters, and we are just showing you what we see, the lens of college football that we see. You mind if I take this one first, Such? I got a
Now go
few.
ahead because
This
I am currently locked out of my Twitter account. I don't know what is going on with that. It's not good.
no way.
It's been a whole day of technical difficulties. People, I'm on my phone, my Twitter. I got a message saying we think you might have been hacked. I'm trying to reset a password that I haven't reset in 13 years.
This is not good. This
It's
is
not
not
going
good.
good.
But hopefully you get it back by Saturday's games because it'll be crucial. If not, screenshots and sent. But I'll just go off and say the first one. It comes from just this Twitter name alone should tell you some problems at the Lib Crusher. This and it's a quote tweet, and it says amazing. Former Ohio State football coach Urban Meyer. Le Papa de Dublin himself is pre-gaming the game by himself drinking at the Kingsdale Giant Eagle in Upper Arlington. Hashtag Go Bucks. And at the Lib Crusher goes, drinking alone at the grocery store is next level, my man. Just incredible. And I did this because there's a bar in Boise that may or may not have a grocery store that may or may not have a bar upstairs, and I may or may have not drank in alone there, doing some study hours going to school. So respect the herb; it's a good call. The second one comes from at Girthy Thad, and this is not college football related, but it just says safe to say that last night was one to forget. And it is a man, and he appears to be in either a polo or a Texas A&M polo, and his pants are just soaked from piss. It's just soaked from piss. Maybe it was after A&M lost to Texas, but not good. Um, the next one is one I know you saw, Zooch. It is from at the Gaines, and it is Ohio State fans to Ryan Day outside the stadium. And it was a video, and this video, a man was filling up gas, and three other men in masks put him in a chokehold and put a plastic bag over his head and dragged him away. Again, you have to check this one out. That was a good one. This was one I don't think did I send this to you? And this is a mean one. And it was a video from Unbiased Ev, Big Ev, on Twitter, Barstool Ev, the Double Vodka Don. He said, and it was kind of his video after Ohio State had lost. And this, like the caption, it just said, "I can't take it anymore. I'm a broken man. I'm dead inside. I hate sports. Fire Ryan Day." And at the Velome Predator, again, fire Twitter name, just says chipmunk physiology. And I don't know if you can see him. Um, yeah, that's just mean because of his big cheeks. Um, and the very last one, or I got two more. It's at the old booth 69. Mizzou Hoops said, "White out. Make sure you help us white out Mizzou Arena as the Tigers host the Bears in the SEC ACC Challenge." And at the old booth 69 goes, "Wear white." And it appears to be a POV of someone maybe wearing a certain clan outfit, insinuating that
That was
Mizzou fans are clan members. Again, mean. Again, that is
and
not
under
okay on that
surveillance.
app. Under surveillance. And the last one, of course, is another just, I'm not going to even describe it. Let's just say Carson Beck had a few more Snapchats leaked this week. Go check them out
He,
because I will not be describing
he,
those, but I have to put that, just make sure the people are aware. He needs to stop.
he is quite possibly the horniest quarterback in all of the land. He just,
Yeah. I wonder what, because he's, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm on TMZ right now because he's dating that Instagram model. But he is just, you know, Carson Beck might be the first guy to ever play himself out of being a first round draft pick. If he would have sat this year out, he would have been a first round pick from the horniness, from the playing bad and seeming to have like whine, to literally saying in a meeting that like he doesn't watch football because it like stresses him out. That's
and
what?
I've had this running theory for a while that more often than not, if you want if you want to win a national championship as a quarterback in the SEC, you have to be kind of mediocre in a lot of ways. Like I know Tim Tebow won one, I know Cam Newton won one. Uh, was no, it was Mac Jones who won for Alabama. Bryce Young and Tua didn't. Stetson Bennett did. Joe Burrow was great. I'll give Joe Burrow his props. He won one. But
Jake Coker,
I mean, like, yeah, Jake Coker. Who was the LSU quarterback who
McCarron,
got the Heat? McCarron won a few. The LSU
was it
quarterback who
Matt
got the Huge
Flynn?
Shield. Matt Flynn. Yeah, he won
Matt
one.
Flynn.
Yeah, and like you just got to be like Stetson Bennett. Like you're okay. You appear on GMA, Good Morning America, just still drunk from the night before. Like you might have to be sat down and been like Stetson. We got a slower roll on the drinking a little bit, buddy. Like you're in the NFL now. Like it happened to
Well,
him.
I mean that maybe that's the reason why he's not in the NFL anymore. Allegedly. Let's
So and Carson
be honest.
Beck was like projected to be the number one overall pick, and it's just not. it's not going great for him right now. I mean, I did kind of feel bad for him on the football thing because I think he kind of meant he doesn't watch football outside of like his game. Like obviously he watches film and stuff. Those guys are busy, so I think that one might have been taken a little out of context. But with all the things that he's been through this year, like multiple three intercepting games, he can't. You just gotta watch what you say. And
Yeah.
he strikes me as the type of person who, especially in the age of social media, I don't want to say he doesn't think before he speaks or sends something, but based on that quote and the Snapchats you were talking about, he doesn't think before he sends something. He just fires it.
Yeah,
He is like
it's
a
the unfortunate
1970s
truth.
quarterback. Like,
You know, yeah, like if he was a 1970s quarterback, it's probably it's Carson Beck and there's probably some funny stories, but it kind of stinks, if it's your normal 22-year-old at Georgia, maybe in a fraternity, he's probably living it up right now, and maybe like no one ever knows. I don't even know his name, but you're the quarterback of Georgia. You just can't be sending stuff like that and saying stuff like that, unfortunately.
and we're at a time, and I still don't get why people can't figure this out. Just because you send on something on Snapchat does not mean it won't get screenshotted. I think people in their mind sometimes think, "Oh, I'll see if they screenshot it and I'll say something." Nope.
Does
We
not matter.
all have a we all have a picture in our Snapchat chats of someone else's Snapchat that someone took a picture of, and
That
it's
they
out
don't
there
know, and that they
now.
don't know that we have a picture of. It
Right.
everyone listening, before you look at us like we're some sort of sick freaks, everyone listening has it, except for
Exactly.
maybe my parents who don't have Snapchat right now.
Right.
Anyways, we are going to move on to the championship game breakdowns. Some of them today, some of them tomorrow. Before I do, want to remind everyone that the Settle Down Live show is this upcoming Thursday, December 12th. Want to give a shout out on that as well. All right, now that that's over, let's talk about the Mountain West Championship game. The first of all the games, the one that's happening tonight, Boise State versus UNLV, the rematch. Winner gets into the college football playoff. I don't know. I feel like this is kind of it's a weird one. I can't really get a read on this game if I'm being honest with you because it's a couple of things. Boise State seems to be like treading water while UNLV seems to be skyrocketing, right? Ashton Genty seems beat up. UNLV seems to be getting healthier. However, a couple of things I look at for UNLV. Barry Odom, everyone knows Barry Odom is getting calls for other jobs in the country right now. UNLV also has to play on the road in the cold in a place that they haven't played in since 2016. I think it's the last time they played in Boise. And also, Haj Malik Williams, the quarterback for UNLV, literally had a soundbite that I literally could picture it in my head like, oh, this is going to be like really bad on Twitter if they lose, where he says, I can't find Boise on a map, to be honest with you. Like, it's just kind of these like differing like superstition vibe things I'm just getting from like off from both teams. Also, Ashton Genty's Twitter may have been hacked because he's posting about cryptocurrency. So like, and let's just say I hope it's hacked. I hope that the starting running back of Boise State Heisman winner isn't posting about crypto the week of the Mountain West Championship. So like, it's all these things are kind of just like it's a chaos explosion ready. It's just like a bad vibe off right now.
What I think this game comes down to, and one of the guys won round one, but I'm interested in round two, is Eric Shenander did a really good job the first time these teams played of
Mm-hmm.
slowing down uh, Brennan Marion's offense. Now, I personally look at Brennan Marion, I'm like, that dude, and he's starting to get a little bit more love now, but that dude is a really good offensive coordinator. He's young. I mean, I don't think people realize because they kind of come out of nowhere the past couple years. UNLV was like winless in the COVID year. Like they didn't win a
Mm-hmm.
single game. They hired the guy from Oregon, and I thought he was that OC, and I want to say he's at Arizona State now, is their OC, but I thought he was going to do a good job at UNLV. It never worked out. Before that, they brought in the dude from Bishop Gorman. who I had no clue was the head coach at New Mexico State now, Sanchez. Uh, but Brennan Marion, and I think a little bit of it's Barry Odom too. But I think Brennan Marion is on the trajectory, and it might not be this year. I guess we'll see. But if one of these Power Five, like a decent Power Five offensive coordinator position opens, that to me is going to be the hire of the offseason because
No, I
that
agree.
dude lost his quarterback like 3 weeks into the season, and they didn't miss a beat. That's not, and it's not like it's Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State, whoever, and it's like, oh, well, we have another 5 star. It's UNLV. They don't have a single 5 star on the entire roster, so they lose that guy. New quarterback comes in. They're humming on offense. And I agree with all the stuff you said earlier. So I'm kind of leaning towards UNLV in this one. I just think that we saw Boise State at their best, was playing their best when they played UNLV the first time around. I don't think Boise State, and they're getting some guys back on offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, some defensive players are starting to come back. But I don't necessarily think UNLV was playing their best at that time, and it was still a close game. I think if UNLV plays their best, they should win this game. And I know it's going to be cold, the crowd's going to be loud, all that stuff. I do think a lot of times when it comes to weather stuff, people put a little bit too much thought into like, oh, yeah, I mean, you see it like all the time. Like SEC fans are like, you don't want to come down here during August to play
Yeah.
in the swamp. They today's nutrition and stuff, they have fans sprinkling water on you the whole time. You have 5 million gallons of Gatorade. And yeah, I get it if it's cold. They have jackets, they have heaters. It's not like we're playing in 1947 anymore. It's a little bit different. Like things are a little bit different. The only guy who can't play in cold is Tua, apparently. But and I hate to do it, and I don't want. I think Boise State fans should be happy with the trajectory of this team under Danielson, under Jeremiah Dickey, regardless if they win or lose this game. If they lose, since COVID had been a 4+ loss team. I think in COVID maybe they lost 2, but that was a weird season. You lost 5 times under Avalos the first season, 4 losses the second. You lost 6 times last year. You're 11-1 now. You lose this, you're 11-2. Will it be disappointing? Yes, because you're going from a playoff bye to the LA Bowl with Gronk. But I think you have to look at the whole picture and be like, okay, things were dark there for a little bit. We were a middle of the road G5 school, and that's like being with the likes of Miami of Ohio or
Mm-hmm.
Troy or whoever. Now, if you look at it, there's not a G5 schools that has it better than you. Tulane's pretty good. Memphis is good. They don't have it better than you. They don't have more promise than you, or anything like that. So I'm leaning UNLV in this one.
It's interesting to see. I think this game's a toss up. It's so I just don't know because I also do think that Tubner played a huge role in that first game. Like
Yeah,
that was probably his best game before. Didn't he get ejected in that game, or was
I
that
think so. He
another
got
game?
ejected in one game. Like he almost was it Oregon that he got ejected?
Yeah, it might have been. Tubner played really well against UNLV, and they can say all they want, like, "Oh, he's practicing this week." There is no shot that Tubner comes back this week. There's just no shot. So my gut tells me UNLV, but my gut also told me UNLV in the first game too. Like,
Yeah,
the way that game was going, I'm like, this is a UNLV win, and Boise just stayed in it. I refuse to make a call because I'm a coward. I I think okay, here's my prediction. I think this game's going to come down to the last drive.
the last
In
drive.
whatever way, and
well.
it's not going to be like a last drive like it's like where Boise State like, oh, they run the ball out and then can take a knee. It's like, no, this game will end on like a turnover on downs, a turnover, or a score. That's my
Fair enough.
prediction.
I mean, it's going to be a close game. Shout out to Expedia.com, which allows you to book hotels to a certain city and southwest of the United States of America, and it is a pay when you get there type deal. So if a certain team was to lose this game and ends up not playing in the Valley of the Sun, I can at 10 o'clock that night or whenever the game ends cancel this hotel that I have booked to go
Would
watch
you
them
also
play.
like to think maybe a certain airline that might, this is just what I've heard, might offer free cancellation and give you flight credits back on any flight? Would you also like this? That's also a huge thank you to this potential airline. I don't know what they're called. This is all hypotheticals too.
Exactly. Shout out to those companies looking out for us in the holidays as we transition to who are we going to next? ACC, Big 12.
The AC. Let's go to the Big 12. Let's just do this in chronological order because this is the morning game. I love this game. ASU versus Iowa State, and I'm going to be the first one to say, do not know a lot about Iowa State. Have not watched a lot of Iowa State this year. I've watched a decent amount of ASU. Love their quarterback. The transfer came over from Michigan State, been balling out. Levitt. Love what Dillingham's doing. I got a lot of buddies from ASU. Hopefully, I'll be watching with my ASU buddy Jason. Shout out Jay Frost, QB1, Wing T legend is what we call him. But ASU's playing really, really well. Scatabo, Cody's favorite player in the country. So
Oh, he talked about him in length the other night. Shout
let's just say,
Shout out Cody. I know when Cody, I love Cody to death, but I always know when he's bored and lonely because I got the Friday morning, uh, and there was some family stuff going on last week, but I got the Friday morning Snapchat. Hey, are you busy? I'm going to end zone to have a few drinks and watch the game. So I know Cody was
Saturday morning.
sad and left. Yeah, he was just wanting to watch some ball. Shout out Cody. I wish I could have made it. But when it gets to this game, I also don't know a ton about Iowa State. Iowa State football and basketball. To me, I look at football and I'm like, oh, they're 10-2. That makes sense. They could also be 2-10, and I'll be like, that
Mhm.
makes sense. Much like in basketball, every year when I go to fill out a bracket and I see that they're 18-13, I'm like, and a 9 seed, I'm like, yep, that makes sense. Like 18 and
100
13,
feet.
like 8-10 in the Big 12. So
100%.
ASU has
Um,
just been on fire lately, and Kenny
that's
Dillingham.
that's why I'm link. That's where I'm leaning. I'm leaning ASU in this. I think this is like Cam Scatabo coming out party. I mean, he's already came out, but I think this is Scatabo legacy game.
It's gonna be and he will be the belle of the ball at the like press conference for whatever. I guess they would be the 12, huh? ASU if they win this and Boise State wins. Uh,
Yeah.
so they would play. They would.
Oh
You know that man will be
no,
fired up.
they could get 11 if the committee bumps down Bama potentially, and maybe they give like SMU the 12.
It's that's true. It would be them playing either Ohio State or like the Georgia Texas loser. Cody's gonna be fired up for that game.
And
It's gonna be
let's just
coming.
say I love Arizona State. Let's just say it'll be 14-3 in the second quarter, and Levitt may or may not throw the worst looking pass over the middle you've seen in your life. And Dillingham will look shook on the sideline, and Sanford Stadium in Athens, Georgia will be loud, to say the least.
And, and I can just envision it now. Scatabo will get like an 8 yard carry on the first play of the game and like be smacking himself on the helmet
Yeah.
and that's when and we can clip this. That is when we will get the Snapchat from Cody about like, yeah, he's here to play.
That's funny. All right, so we both got ASU in that one. Let's move on to the SEC championship game, Georgia, Texas. this is how I summarize this game is for any Breaking Bad fans out there, he can't keep getting away with this. He can't keep getting away with this. I think Kirby Smart does something similar to Texas there at what he did the first game. I
You
think
know,
this
I
one maybe not
go
like
ahead.
a blowout, but I don't think this game is within. If the line was 7.5 or the super line, I would take Georgia in that spread, winning by more than 7.5 points.
This is going to make absolutely no sense, but do you want to know why I'm like 100% confident Georgia's going to win this game? Because of how they played against Georgia Tech. This
Yeah,
is the worst case scenario for Sark and Texas because I'm like, oh, Georgia, like, probably should have lost to Georgia Tech. Like, Georgia Tech had 100 chances to win. If they don't
hmm
fumble, then Georgia Tech wins that game. That means Georgia's probably going to win by like 17. And
yeah. No, this is a game that just has like they just start gashing and like Ewers gets sacked a couple times and maybe like I can just see it now like third quarter and the band's going and then they show a clip of like Arch Manning on the sideline and then they throw Arch in for like a QB run that usually has been working and it just gets stuffed for like a 2 yard loss and it's just not looking good for the Longhorns. But yeah, I love Georgia in this game. I don't even think Carson Beck has to play well to win. I just like envision a defense and linebackers. The linebackers, especially when I close my eyes, I just see them playing really well. But that's not to discredit.
it's
Like Texas defense is real good. I think Georgia somehow is going to get enough points, maybe through some BS. But I just am envisioning that Georgia D line and Georgia linebackers just come into play.
and I could see it like being a worst case scenario start for Texas. Like they get the ball, they try like a big play on the first play of the game, like a shot play. It's incomplete. Something happens, it's incomplete. Next play, you get like 2 yards on a rush, and then third down, like you try to go crossing routes over the middle, doesn't happen, and then Georgia like returns like a 30-yard punt to get in your territory, and it's a
Yep.
bad. That's just I've seen this play too many times with
Yep.
Kirby Smart to like pick against him.
And it's the
Now if
Georgia
this
Dome or two or whatever the new stadium's called now. So it's just
it's not looking good. I mean Texas could win, I guess, but I'm pretty. This game is one I'm the most confident in picking, and it's
really
Georgia over Texas.
that's fair because we're gonna jump into the Big Ten championship next, and I think this is the one that's the complete opposite for me. Everything in my body tells me I should be picking Oregon. Everything. They are better. This is not like the SEC where it's like, oh, Texas like should win, like, but they're I should pick Oregon, and I think I'm going to pick Oregon. But man, this would be this seems like a sneaky game for Penn State to win because Penn State every few years just sneaks one like this, like they did versus Wisconsin a few years ago with Trace McSorley, or it's like
I forgot about Trace McSorley.
they lost like Penn State. This would be the funniest thing. Like you lose to Ohio State and then you beat Oregon. Like this is the game historically that Oregon's blown. Is that fair to say?
Oh, not absolutely. Like it really is the one that usually once a year Oregon has one that you're like, ooh, how'd you lose that one? I mean, I'm leaning Oregon too, just because I don't trust the Penn State offense to score enough. But Oregon's also been kind of you haven't heard a ton about Oregon since they beat Ohio State. Like they just and I think part of that's they're on the West Coast, so like a lot of their games start a little bit later.
hmm
Big Ten has been kind of weird this year with some games being on Peacock and that type of thing. So I'm going to lean Oregon in this one. I think it could do a lot for Penn State if they win. I just don't trust Drew Aller in that offense until they
I
get.
don't either. No, that's the only thing. I've never been. I mean, you know this. People listen to this podcast. The people who know me, I'm not shy about my feelings towards Penn State. I'm not shy about my feelings and what I think about Drew Aller. Um, look, now thing about football that's great. I can't even get these words out of my mouth. Is that they can make me eat the crow. Also, speaking of crow, shout out Tyler Crow, um, Boise State fullback, appeared on the who has appeared, I think, on Takeover Sports Ryan Seekert's show. Um, I don't want to say that if he hasn't, but no, Tyler Crow's been on his show, right?
I think so, yeah.
Well,
I
I just want to
remember
give
seeing
him.
clips.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out. Tyler Crow just got nominated as we are recording for the Lowman Award, Nation's Best Fullback. So shout out Tyler Crow. Anyways, getting back on track now. The I've never been a fan of Penn State, never been a fan of Drew Aller. Shoot, we talked 5 minutes last week about how Drew Aller stars don't matter, and we used Drew Aller as an example. I think the thing that Penn State could use in this game is familiarity. Familiarity in playing in Indianapolis in a conference championship that's that big in a stadium. Even when the Pac-12 was playing in championships, it was it was either like it was the home game or Levi's Stadium, or the 2/3 capacity UNL Vegas Stadium. So it's like I don't know. I think I'm going to lean Oregon. I think that offense just is too good.
I agree.
All right, and we will move on to the last of the big championship games, the ACC Championship game. SMU on an absolute heater. I think they're 9-0 in their last 9 games, playing real well. And for all the talk about how SMU, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, Zooch. It's Ole Miss, Ohio State, Miami, poster childs this year of man. You buy a team, I guess less Ohio State because they are still going to make the playoff, but it's you spent all this money in a team to essentially like buy it, like your donors bought it, and it's a failure. SMU, everyone joked about it before the year, like, oh man, they got like no culture, no one shows up to their games, and that could be true, but they are the poster child of shoot, you can actually just buy your way if you have a good coach and good players and like choose the right guys to buy. That's not a knock on the players; they're really good, but they bought them this year. And it's just so funny that they are playing the antithesis of that in Clemson in the Fighting
Oh, yeah.
Davos.
That's why, and we'll get it out of the way right now. It's by far and away, for the words you just said, the meme matchup of the week.
Oh,
You,
that's what mine is too. Yeah, so I'm glad we're on the same page.
this, Dabo Sweeney has been waiting all year for a matchup like this. Like, he's going to, like, talk about, oh, they bought their way into the ACC with however many hundreds of millions of dollars it took or whatever. We don't have to do that. Everyone's doubting you. Like, no one thinks you're any good. You've lost like 2 of your last 4, whatever it is. And it just goes to show you how much luck goes into this thing. Like, Clemson has lost to every good team they've played this year. Truly, they got curb stomped by Georgia. They lost to South Carolina last week. And who was their third loss? Louisville.
South
They lost to
Carolina.
Louisville.
Yeah.
Yeah, Louisville, South Carolina, Georgia. They didn't beat SMU. They didn't play them. They didn't play Miami. And they seriously, if they win and UNLV wins, Clemson might get a bye. We'll get a bye.
Even if Clemson wins, they could still get a bye if Iowa State wins. Like, this is like
It is
which is
far and away the
actually
meme matchup. It's hilarious. This
which is
matchup.
actually funny because another thing why this is the meme matchup in my opinion is because there's a scenario that could happen where Boise State could get the 3 seed. If Boise wins and Clemson wins, that's wow.
3 seed Boise State playing the winner of Alabama Notre Dame.
And I love Boise State, and I need them to get a bye. However, nothing would scare me more than the Peach Bowl playing an SEC school.
I literally laid down to go to bed last night thinking about that, and I was like, I just saw visions of Jalen Milroe on like a quarterback sweep, just taking it
Oh,
like
yours.
65 yards.
Oh, yours was a quarterback sweep. Mine was just a. It was a scramble. Mine was just like a drop back, and one of our middle linebackers has just tried his best to like it goes through the tackle, and then one of our corners like goes in like perfect form tackle with all his might, giving it his all, bounces off of him like a dang tennis ball. And I just picture Kalen DeBoer in his T-shirt on the sidelines, and it's just not good.
How
It
it it is such a risk reward game that I'm really hoping it happens because I would not. There is not a show I would tune into faster than the Paul Feinbaum show if Alabama were to lose to Boise State. He's already had strike three. He's already had strike three. If they lost to Boise State, it would like
You already
you
know
know.
OU fans would be in there. OU fans would be calling in. It would be. Oh my gosh, I
However,
need
that being
that.
said, I'm terrified of Ryan Williams versus uh, a secondary that has struggled at times
Yeah,
this year.
struggled is a word. That's definitely, I would say so. But SMU Clemson.
I'm picking Clemson. I think Clemson's gonna.
Man, I think part of me feels bad if I choose Clemson because then SMU is going to get left out. I just know they are, and it's going to suck for the sport as a whole. So I think for just like the longevity of the sport, I need SMU to win and not put it in the committee's hand to either choose between SMU and Alabama.
Yeah,
So I
it's
will bet against my own self-interest of getting the 3 seed and my own self-interest of correctly predicting a playoff team at the beginning of the year, and we'll pick Clemson to win this game. And it will probably be something stupid like 20-17, and it'll probably be like the worst offensive game you'll see, and SMU should be up by 3 touchdowns, but they'll have 100 yards and penalties.
it's the Davo way, and it it will be partially. I was laughing at him in that stupid button-down Clemson shirt that he wears to every press conference, like the purple one with the little
Okay,
logo.
yes, I did see that. And one more thing before we end the show. There was a certain list that I failed to put. And now that you bring up the state of South Carolina, do you have anything more on this game, Zooch?
I do not.
I would like to end the show on this. And this is a message to a one Shane Beamer.
Oh, yeah.
I know what you're doing. And you can clip this, do whatever you want. I know exactly what you're doing. I see your Twitter
Bless you.
sneezing. That's 3 sneezes for how many strikes I'm done with you, Shane Beamer. You cannot take that video of David and quote tweet it with what you said. You know exactly what you're doing. It's the Palmetto Bowl. It's rivalry weekend. This is like when head coaches know the spread and cover it for their alumni. I know you claim to be the nice guy. You know exactly what you're doing, and you are officially under surveillance.
Yes. And with that, I'm hearing whispers that dinner is ready at my parents' house. Watch, it's the bowl games don't mean anything anymore, so we got championship weekend and we have the playoff coming up, so enjoy it. We will have a show next week. After that, we'll get together and kind of figure out how we're going to do shows because I know Christmas and Christmas Eve and stuff
Mm-hmm.
fall on Tuesday and Wednesday. Same with New
Definitely.
Year's Eve, New Year's. So we'll get some stuff out for you guys. I'm going
Yeah.
to be doing some transfer portal recruiting stuff too, like going through that. We might, be posting on our Instagram if some big
Yeah.
names hit the portal,
We're
that
going to
kind
be
of
doing
thing.
that. And then also, like last year, we will be doing our national championship live reaction show, just a quick 20-minute one, to be getting those raw emotions of what we will have just watched. Hopefully, it'll be at a better game than last year. But no, we're excited. Off-season content this year is looking to be really, really good. Let's just say that we are more in tuned. We have more resources this year and a wider audience because without you guys, we wouldn't be doing this. We really appreciate all the views. Like we say every week, The views on our clips are up way more than last year. I know Zooch talks about it. I talk about it. It's really incredible to see.
Some of them are
So,
mean.
some of them are mean, but some of them are nice. Let's just say that. Let's just say maybe there was one group of people that were mean, and it's because you supported a dork who wore earplugs to a college football game. All
I
right,
forgot about
Zooch.
that.
Anything else?
Nothing else.
All right, guys. With that being said, enjoy the games, and we will see you next week.